The hymn you just heard, God Be With You Till We Meet Again. It's a lovely, lovely hymn, sentimental to many of you, whether it was performed weekly at your own services growing up or perhaps at a funeral of a loved one. It has become perhaps the most popular benediction hymn there is, especially in the United States. It was written as a poem by Pastor Jeremiah Rankin in 1880. Rankin, who was born in Thornton, New Hampshire, and graduated from Middlebury College in 1948, was a Presbyterian and Congregational pastor in New England and Washington, D.C. He was an abolitionist and a champion of the temperance movement and minister of Washington, D.C.'s first Congregational church. And in 1890, he was appointed 6th president of Howard University in Washington, D.C. Rankin's sermons were popular with Vice President at the time, Woodrow Wilson, and numerous members of the United States Congress. 2 sermons were published and circulated throughout the country. One, The Bible, the Security of the American Institutions, and The Divinity of the Ballot. Among Rankin's congregational members were statesman Frederick Douglass and John Mercer Langston. God Be With You Till We Meet Again was simply composed, so Rankin states, that his church choir could have something to sing when they parted each week. Rankin said about the hymn that it was written as a Christian goodbye. It was called forth by no person or occasion, but was deliberately composed as a Christian hymn on basis of the etymology of the word goodbye, which at the time most popularly translated, God be with you. The text as we know it now takes biblical references from Deuteronomy, Song of Solomon, and Acts. In its original publication, the hymn contained 8 stanzas. Today we know it in 4. The text is essentially a parting blessing. In verse 1, a prayer that states God will guide you, and in verse 2 that He will continue to feed you, and in verse 3 and 4 that He will protect you in life and in death and cover you in His love. Each stanza is framed by the phrase, God be with you till we meet again. Shortly after completing the poem, Rankin states that he sent only the first verse to 2 different composers, one of which was of musical note, although he never states who that was, and the other was William G. Tomer, wholly unknown and not thoroughly educated in music. Rankin states he selected the composition of the latter, and with only some slight changes, it was published. This variation of the tune, which we most popularly sing, was made popular through the 19th and early 20th century through its utilization in the evangelic crusades of Dwight L. Moody and gospel singer Ira Sankey. The tune has come a long way since the first decade of the 20th century and is now utilized most frequently by the Church of Jesus Christ for Latter-day Saints and the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, formerly known as the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And they would use this to close many of their broadcasts, which were streamed around the world. According to hymnary.org, the tune has been published in over 1,000 hymnals since 1880. This popular tune became widely worshipped with throughout the early 20th century, and rather early on it was deemed that perhaps it was overly sentimental in character, and this prompted a search for other alternatives to the tune. The tune eventually fell into the hands of young English composer Ralph Vaughan Williams. Vaughan Williams was one of the most accomplished and beloved composers of England in the 20th century. His output is vast and includes orchestral works, concerti, choral works, both sacred and secular, art songs, hymns, operas, and ballet. Vaughan Williams composed roughly half of these works by 1914. a period of only 13 years since his first publication, Linden Lee, which was published in 1901. While Vaughan Williams' relationship with the church was pliable at best, he is considered a champion of sacred choral music in the 20th century. Perhaps his best-known hymn tune is Sine Nomine, which ironically translates a song without words. However, it has been set to a plethora of hymn text, and most notably, For All the Saints. This tune, the alternative for God Be With You Till We Meet Again, is entitled Randolph, and it was composed in or shortly before 1906, the year when Vaughan Williams' rendition first appeared in the English hymnal. It is unclear whether or not Vaughan Williams had access to Tomer's original tune. However, the melody which bookends Vaughan Williams' variation is strikingly similar in contour to the final phrase of Tomer's refrain. Listen closely to the end of the original tune. And here is Vaughan Williams' rendition, which bookends the first and last phrase of his hymn. The rhythms are nearly identical, and the contour moves the same, kind of up, or in Tomer's case, starting up and coming down. While the tune that Vaughan Williams composed is the most popular rendition in the United Kingdom, it has not been as widely published, only being recorded in 35 hymnals to date, despite the widespread and dominating circulation of the English hymnal. Still, the tune is charming and simple, cultivating the message of Rankin's text quite clearly. Should you have a Methodist hymnal nearby, you can see the original tune by Tomer on page 672, and Vaughan Williams' rendition on the subsequent page. Or you can search UMH 672 or 673 online, and it should be one of the first results that pop up in your search. In the improvisation I'm about to play over the organ, I will alternate between and intertwine both melodies, although mostly focusing on Vaughan Williams' rendition. At times, it may be difficult to find the tune. It may be buried in the middle of the texture, and other times it may blossom out of the texture, a texture you could call, let's say, pastoral, or if colors are your thing, a pastel-like setting, nothing too harsh. As I play, I encourage you to gander over Rankin's text. While the first verse may be committed to memory for many of you, the subsequent verses are quite lovely and comforting in times of trial, and also are great for personal reflection. In any capacity, I look forward to worshiping with all of you in person again soon.